Hello, baby. Hello, boys and girls.
I don't think we have many
Today-
girls that listen to our podcast.
That was actually, you know what? You're right, Spencer. Actually, I think we should look at the demographics. I think we're a boys only.
We're a boys.
only
We're
club.
not. We're not saying girls are not allowed. It's just that they don't want to associate with us voluntarily.
Yeah, I mean, who
This is
would?
a podcast
safe
for
space the
incels.
fellas. Yeah.
Just kidding.
God, you ever think about taking the black pill?
I
Don't
take the
manifest
black
anything,
pill
please.
every morning, and it's called damn coffee. Because I
It's
drink black
charcoal
coffee.
for me.
And you wait. Let's look at the beans. What incel beans? Like,
That's right. I get
Look
it
at
from
this.
the incel country.
it might be racist if I say what's the incel country? Spencer?
Well, it's in Sylvania.
Did you say in Slovenia? We just lost all of our Slovenian listeners right
Oh
there.
shit! And we just checked the demographics, and it turns out 100% of our listeners were coming from Slovenia.
I will never listen to this show anymore.
If I didn't lose them, you definitely just lost them right there.
I was gonna say.
That's a bad move.
It's like the time when I was like shooting at this vintage dealer's house.
Well, yeah, of course
with
you don't want to
the
shoot at
photographer.
someone's house. That's gonna make them really mad.
Yeah, no, it's but anyway, I think you guys were there. I was like doing an Instagram live where I was looking at his like the cool stuff, and I was doing this Australian accent, and one guy was like, "Please stop doing an Australian accent."
And it was
But
it was
okay.
Chris Hemsworth.
He's like, "Ethan, I don't appreciate you doing my accent.
That's exactly what he sounds like too.
My name's Chris Hemsworth."
Taika Waititi.
Like we just swap
Yeah.
it, you know.
I'm a pirate.
I'm Taika Waititi. I'm Blackbeard.
Yeah.
I can't even tell if I'm leaning into like Cockney at that point.
Is he leaning into Cockney? I mean, hey, that
I mean, you gotta ask the tower.
shows pretty gay, so he probably is leaning into some Cockney, if you know what I mean.
Can we leave that in?
I don't know. Is that okay?
I
I mean, Taika
Why is
Waititi. Listen, Taika Waititi is straight guy, made the show, and he himself describes it as gay. So if he can say it,
wait, hold on. If
Taika Waititi, I'm saying
if a straight man could say if it's gay or not,
I'm saying the
let's
creator of the show
hilarious.
said it. He created the show. If he listen, what I'm saying is, if you want to get mad at anyone, get mad at Taika Waititi.
Yeah, if thinking Taika is bad, then lock me up,
Exactly.
baby.
That I'm the biggest
Oliver
Taika Waititi on earth.
Slightly off topic. I just
Please, let's get off
just talking
topic.
about voices. Yeah, but yeah, we're gonna get off
Yeah.
topic. OT.
Overtime.
I saw this TikTok of like, I guess he's like not a hillbilly. I don't know. He's just an old man. And then the comment was, "Can you please say mustard or ketchup?" And I was like, "What the hell?" And so he starts talking. He's like, "I am never gonna say that. That's offensive that you told me to do that." And I was watching with Isabel. Isabel's like, "What's the big deal?" And I showed her the whole like, "What'll it be, fellas? Mustard or ketchup?" And then she said, I haven't really seen the SpongeBob SquarePants movie," and I'm like, "What the fuck?"
Yeah,
So then you watched it immediately, right?
Immediately, yeah.
it's got
Yeah,
that one's it's ScarJo. It's got Jeffrey Tambor,
Jeffrey
stacked
Tambor.
cast, Alec
Yeah.
Baldwin.
That's right.
Yeah,
It's gonna take a lot more than 5. What are these? Those are 5 goober dollars, sir.
yeah.
David, and of course, David has.
You know what's crazy is that Alec Baldwin killed SpongeBob on the set of that movie.
Yeah, he aimed the gun.
Like
and then he
the
saw
boot, it was supposed to be a prop boot when he stepped on SpongeBob, but they accidentally swapped out for a real boot.
Oh no.
Dude, so he got completely
That's
squished.
right. Who else is in that movie?
Tom Kenny.
Tom
yeah.
Kenny.
Of
Yeah,
course.
Bill Faber, Bask, whatever his name is,
The guy.
Clancy
yeah, I was
Brown.
gonna say.
and of course, Mr. What's his name? Damn it, I forgot what
Mr.
his name
Plankton.
is. Yeah, well, that's not like the actor. Like his like stage name is like Mr. Blank, right? Like it's like
Yeah, what is it like? All of them, because the we've talked about this before, but yeah, all the like Gen X animation guys all wish they were like from the 50s, so they all have like weird like 50s like B movie or sci-fi personas.
and it's also like the voice actor of Plankton. I mean, he's kind of citing like what was it, Gregory Peck,
Yeah,
right? So it's like he likes
I
like mid-century
I love
stuff.
that. Yeah, I love that video of him with the sword like on his wall right behind him, just sitting in his throne.
Mr. Lawrence,
Mr.
it's Mr.
Lawrence, there
Lawrence.
you
That's his.
go.
Yeah, married to the voice actor of
We should
Sandy.
get him on the show.
We should.
Yeah.
Wait,
The
hold on.
SpongeBob
Knock,
episode.
knock, knock. Come in. Hey there, style and direction.
Whoa, it's Mr. We just said your name.
It's Sheldon J. Plankton.
Yeah, that's right, Sheldon Cooper.
Hello, I'm Sheldon Cooper.
That's right.
Bazinga.
This is an Impressions podcast.
Yeah.
What if Plankton met Sheldon?
I can. Hey there, my name's Sheldon too.
They probably destroy the world.
Interesting. Yeah. They probably would. Plan G. I love Plan
Yeah.
G. That's just an excuse. This whole. I mean, hey, I think we said it before. My original idea for podcast is just a way for me to do improv and do voices, and so we got to keep that.
We got to keep
there.
it in.
Because you know what? This podcast is a hobby.
Whoa, segue. Another
Speaking of
hobby.
Segue.
hobbies,
Yeah.
That's right.
My hobby is driving
this is
segues.
also- by the way, this is Style and Direction.
That's right. Have we introduced ourselves?
Absolutely, we haven't. I'm Ethan.
I'm
I'm
Spencer
Wong.
DSO.
and I'm MJ.
And today, we talk about menswear. That's what we do on this podcast. And it's been a fun year, hasn't it, guys? It's been a fun pandemic.
Hardly.
I'm recapping 2 years.
Okay,
Actually,
yeah, I was gonna say.
2 of them.
Is it? Well, this is what season are we on now?
8.
Wow, I can't believe we went from like
don't
season
know.
1 to season 8 in like a year and a half.
Yeah, like when was the first break we took for a month?
It was
like
a
when we
while
do our
ago.
like month stuff.
Two.
I mean, it's like our hey, you guys ready for our 2023 spring summer or sorry, January drop? That's for the next episode.
That's right. It's gonna be like the ball, New Year's.
Gonna drop it.
Oh, I thought you were talking about my visit to the
Puberty doctor?
I was gonna say the testicular doctor.
Okay.
Yeah. I mean, I guess he could. I was gonna say serve.
Would that just be a
Can't say that.
urologist? I think that would just be a urologist, right?
Is that? I guess so.
Well,
Like urinary tract.
But there's other
Kind
stuff.
of.
I don't know enough about anatomy. I'm not qualified to have this discussion.
Because I feel like women have a urologist and a gynecologist. So I'm assuming
So we
maybe
need a
men have 2
penicilogist.
different ones. Yeah, peologist. Well, I guess a peologist would be a urologist technically.
Exactly.
Because also like a poo doctor would be a gastroenterologist, right? Because that would be
A different.
Okay, so that's the field that I want to get into, is what you're saying.
The poo doctor.
Yeah, if I love shit,
Yeah.
I want like a character on like some sort to be like, hi, I'm Doctor Filber
Poop.
Jiggins.
We got to
Oh,
stop
okay,
talking
no,
about
but
poop.
I love poop. Yeah,
Enough.
I hate
It's
it.
like it's like the
hate
thing where
poop.
like the vampire works at the blood bank, kind of.
That's dangerous.
Yeah, I think that should be banned. We
Why
should
would
make
they
that-
hire
we should
him?
Make that illegal.
It wasn't
Yeah,
illegal
I
in,
wanna-
in
I
the
wanna-
hit TV show
Hang
Supernatural.
on, I gotta stand up.
It's
for a
like
second.
it's like if a wool it's like if a wolf is like, I want to work at the chicken factory.
where
Would
they
that-
make the chicken.
Would that work? Yeah, where they make the chickens. I want to work in God's factory.
The factory in the sky.
That would be like the wolf being like, no, you can leave me behind with the crops.
while you
but
cross
I won't eat them.
the river in the rowboat.
What the hell am I supposed to do?
I love Rivers. Rivers Cuomo of fun. But anyway, today we're talking about. Well, first off, I want to say that it's been fun for these 2 years of like kind of diving into like how we think about menswear and the things we like about it and why we like it and the simple like some of the concepts like authenticity or POV that kind of guide us.
Mhm.
And I think what we're kind of hinting toward in this final episode of 2022 is that I think we said it before, but we think of menswear as a hobby. I think it's like
Right.
it's straight up like a hobby, and that's kind of what makes it different than most people's approach to it, I feel like. Or at least we have a lot of resistance from people who can't think of it that
Well,
way.
I feel like I don't know. I feel like it's just I would say most people into menswear would say that it is a hobby, but I have a feeling that maybe they mean it in a slightly different way than we do, or maybe they just think about it in a slightly different way. Because I think mostly what we're talking
Yeah.
about is we try not to. I think the thing that sums this up is we do not let external pressure, or we try not to let external pressure like dictate our style. Like there's internal pressure, I'd
Right.
say, like because it's like we want to
Because I'm hard on
improve or
myself.
hone our style,
Self-actualize.
yeah, and stuff like
Yeah.
that. But
Yeah.
we're so above it all that we don't even care about trends or
We're on Mount Olympus.
yeah,
We're on the top
exactly.
pyramid of Maslow's
The
hierarchy of
pantheon
needs
of
about menswear.
menswear.
I mean, that's kind of actually. I don't know why I didn't write down the Maslow hierarchy of needs for this, because actually that kind of helps out because, um, yeah, we were talking with Henrik, and I apologize for people listening if you guys watched my I guess kind of one-on-one with Henrik about status and culture last month or a couple weeks ago. We kind of do hint at this idea of like why we do think of it differently, and we, while he doesn't think of it as a hobby, I think he does, like Spencer said, he does agree that there's less external pressure. We don't take other people's opinions into consideration of how we apply menswear. I think, to go back to how other people might do it, I might just be projecting, but I think that the hobby for people comes in like the details of it. Like the hobby is not wearing a suit. The hobby is I get to pick the type of details on the suit because I have to wear a suit anyway.
Or I think
like I think like a finance guy might be like, okay, well, a suit isn't a hobby for me because I have to wear it, but I get to, do fun things like, oh, maybe I'll make a suit with ring jacket, or I'll get a bespoke suit, and that's where the hobby comes out. Whereas for us, the whole thing of the suit in general is a hobby. Also, the buying of it, the details of it, and the wearing of it, because it's not really necessary.
yeah, I think there's another subset of people who like once again would consider clothing their hobby, but are more just into like collecting objects. Like you see this a lot with watch guys, and like if you go on the Goodyear welted subreddit, people like listen, like you know. I have a lot of
No
shoes. I
offense.
know
Hold on.
Ethan, you have way more shoes than me, but still, you go to the Goodyear
Oh yeah, I
welted
do.
subreddit or something like that, and you see people who have like a shoe rack of like 24 fucking Allen Edmonds with different combination contrast like heels and laces and stitching, and it's like at that point it's just you're just buying shoes because you like to buy shoes.
Just
Or
to
the same
have
thing
them.
with watch subreddits where people have like hey, no disrespect to any of our listeners who like watches, because I think they have good collections, but you go on some subreddits and it's people just basically buying the basic bastard list for watches, and it's because they just like buying things. And I mean,
Yeah,
I'd
that
also
is
say
a
that like there's
yeah.
some collector mindset to us, maybe with like
Oh,
vintage,
absolutely. I was gonna get into that later.
but
Yeah.
I also think it's different because we're not buying just to collect. We're buying because we want to collect things that we want to wear, I guess.
Yeah, I mean it's kind of, I mean, I'm not gonna deny that the menswear is like a unique hobby compared to other things. Like, I was gonna think of, oh, with like, does watches work for the outfit repeating? We're like, oh, I want to wear this Casio today, but like I really want to wear my diver, so I'll wear that tomorrow, and then add on to infinity. But then obviously the watch itself is not changing like an outfit does. So like you can technically wear this, you can wear the same watch. I mean, or unless if you count, changing the band,
A different
there are ways
watch.
to
Yeah,
make
it's
it more
just, but it's
menswear,
like there's less
but it is
combinations with one watch than there is like with an outfit.
like a sport
Yes.
coat. Yeah,
Mm.
exactly. Especially if you wear ties and different shirts like
Yeah.
I do. But I do agree that menswear is a different hobby. But I do want to, like, I think the overall idea of this episode is that we want to make this distinction that, like, for us it really is a hobby. Like, it's not. It is different than how most people conventionally look at menswear, or at least that we've seen even with our own discourse.
Mhm. Because
And maybe why that
I mean,
is
because
as
we've
well.
talked about this in the episode about fitting in, and I think I mean we both kind of agreed that like I think that we both deep down, I think we you know, we can admit that we dress because we think it, like, the way that we dress looks good, right? So it's like you could say there is that
Yeah.
desire to look good.
Mm.
But as we said before, if we wanted to quote unquote like fit in, or like maybe advance our careers by dressing a certain way, we're not necessarily doing that. Like when
Even if we wanted to advance our way in like the menswear world, I think we also make choices that are not popular. As the list of ins and
yeah,
outs
maybe we
have
can get
shown,
into the
there's a lot of
list later
unpopular
too.
things.
Yeah.
Yeah, maybe, or in the even in the future pod. Um, but yeah, I mean, it's also one reason why I want to make this distinction is because like we've always had like my famous debates at Berkeley about like like the guys who buy Ludlow suits often are not the same guys who are buying Ring Jacket or even Spear and McKay, for example. Like Spear and McKay, yes, it's practical, but I definitely think it's geared toward the hobbyist menswear guys
Mm.
more than like say a Ludlow suit, right? Like there's just something there
Yeah.
that is more
But
in that vein, and I think there is a
yeah,
distinction
because it's
between the
like
two the markets.
it's one of those things where, like, unless you live in like Toronto or like one of the two places that like have Spear and McKay like stocked in person or whatever, it's going to be way easier to go to a J. Crew or a Men's Warehouse or whatever the Canadian equivalent is to buy a suit than go to a place like Spear and McKay, which, like, probably the prices are relatively comparable. I don't think it's going to be that much more than, like, I don't know, what does a Spear and McKay suit go for? Because a J. Crew suit is
Like 700
okay. That's
bucks,
about like a
yeah,
J.
like
Crew suit,
typical.
but it's like my point is,
Yeah.
like, you wouldn't go, like, most people would not go out of their way to go to Spear and McKay versus Men's Warehouse or J. Crew to get something that's basically the same cost, but just with some extra details, and you have to wait for it to get
Yeah.
shipped and all that shit.
Yeah, and whenever we talk about things of like, oh, like lapel size or whatever, like I feel like it, like when it comes to that or like cut, like that's definitely a hobbyist thing to think about versus like a practicality. Because like if we were being completely honest, like you could wear anything that that's from like the mall
Mm-hmm.
or but we wear it to a job. And most places, I mean, most I've seen CEOs that where I've seen salespeople, marketing people, whatever, like they'll just wear J Crew and it's fine. Like it's not. In fact, like we always say, like you don't want to get the menswear disease of thinking about it as a hobby. You know, it's like, I mean, I guess the reason also why I make this distinction is because like there's a difference between like a film score or a person who's like, oh, I like that score, it's epic, versus like a guy like, let's look at like the theory and like let's trace this analysis of this thematic development and everything. And I'm like, I wish I could just think that this music was like
Pretty. Yeah.
cool or pretty, yeah. And that's not to say like you have to know it inherently, like you don't have, like I don't believe in like the education level to get to this, that might be up for debate, but I think it's just about like having a very strong opinion about something that is irrelevant is kind of what makes it a hobby. That's a loose definition, but it's like, it's I don't know.
Yeah.
Like if you want a kid to play with a toy, like you could get him a ball, right? Like that's whatever. But like if you want to get like, oh, you got to get like this this Luke Skywalker from like 2005, like that, the obsession part of it, the absurdity, maybe even the irrelevance to like actual playing, that's what makes it a hobby,
Not to like kind of discount our whole point about how this is just for fun and not practical, but the other thing that I've always like, or not always, I just guess more recently, the more I like think the more I have to think about clothes and stuff like that. I always think it's weird that there are not more guys who are into fashion as a hobby, because the payoff is like you look good and feel comfortable almost all the time. Like, I don't know, that seems like a pretty good payoff. Like, I that's I think one of the reasons I continue to like clothes is because I realized, again, this is a hobby, but I also realized how practical clothing can be, like how much it can actually just serve you in everyday life. And again, that's I think just one of the things. It is still a hobby, but that practicality is one of the things that I like it for.
I guess, I mean, to be completely fair, there's some hobbies they might think that it says something wrong about them, maybe they can admit that it'll enrich their life in one way, but maybe like it's like there's an opportunity
Mm-hmm.
cost, for example. It's like I mean, first off, that's what makes it even more of a hobby to me than like practicality, because it's like, oh, I could get into playing I don't know, Magic the Gathering, but I could also think, okay, maybe if someone found out, maybe like I would feel too like self-conscious about it. Not saying that the Magic the Gathering sucks, but I'm just saying like some people might not get into, or even like I don't know, like some guys are like hesitant to get into like anime, for example, because of like, the connotations of what anime brings. Even though I keep trying to get Spencer to finish fucking Death Note, you know what I'm saying? But maybe menswear is kind of the same
Well,
way. Like, we're like, okay, well, I don't want to be seen as like
well,
that guy,
because
and not even like the suit guy. It was just like an
well,
obsessive.
yeah,
I
because
think
the other thing
maybe
about like menswear versus other hobbies, like you said, like Magic the Gathering or anime, is like you can be like like a secret like anime fan or Magic the Gathering fan or something,
that's
but it's
true.
really
That's true.
difficult to be a secret menswear guy because you're hot. Like that's how you're just presenting yourself to everybody all the time. So I guess there is
Yeah.
like maybe some more pressure. I guess that's I mean we're maybe getting off topic at this point, but I guess that's probably why more people are not into it, just because it's this there's this like constant performance that you have to do.
It's more public.
Right.
Yeah.
Well, that's on the kind of a related note here. The idea that menswear is a hobby is something that people get. Like, I know that as we've seen in the Discord, some people are resistant to that idea, or maybe they don't think of it the same way. But I remember like early days of the Discord, we're talking with Kiyoshi about how like sometimes you have to like you go to work to get a fit for the weekend. You know what I mean? Like you get your boring soul crushing finance corporate job so that you can wear like your capital pieces on Saturday and Sunday. And it's like what I think is interesting is that like first off, that creates that dichotomy of like, okay, well, obviously your corporate attire is not your hobby. I mean, it might involve some aspects of it, but it might not be the actual hobby that you enjoy, or the part of the hobby that you enjoy, because you really get to do your own thing on the weekends. The difference for me and Spencer, MJ, and maybe some of our friends IRL is that that weekend thing is every day, and we just kind of force other people to view it. It's kind of like it's like the opposite, where it's like you're on display, but like I think we just kind of capitalize on that. Um, Granted, I do think that most of our jobs, all three of us, aren't as public facing as other people, so we do kind of enjoy that privilege a little bit,
That's true. I mean, I've
Like
like, well, I have talked
yeah,
about, I guess now my job isn't as public facing because as an editor, I'm not really
yeah,
the one, for the most part, covering stories. But I will say that is like, I've talked about this, right? I do have to consider that where if I'm going to be out covering something and interviewing people, then I do have to like sort of think about like, okay, I need to like make this kind of impression. So this is how I should dress.
right. But I think maybe the difference there is that our style is pretty all encompassing, or we like a lot of things where we never feel like we're not being ourselves.
Yeah.
And maybe that's a version of code switching that we kind of talked about in the Discord. Because I mean, I guess one aspect of code switching is, oh, I can't be myself, so I have to adopt their things. But I feel like I still like t-shirts. Like I have no problem wearing it. So like if the occasion had for it, I could make a t-shirt fit that I really enjoyed. That is not me defaulting. I mean, I have a whole anti-defaulting feel, and yeah, I never feel not just inauthentic, but I never feel like my fit
Yeah, that's
sucks
true.
because I have to make the other person feel better. Like I refuse to do that. Like I think that's like one of the big things. Um, but yeah, I mean, I guess okay. So here on this next part, did you always feel like menswear was a hobby? Like did it come into that later on, or did you always like think like this is buying clothes is just a fun little silly thing that I do?
I think it
I'm
kind of,
wearing
yeah,
it.
I think it kind of was always like that in some aspect for me, at least. Um, I, like I don't know. I feel like it might have come kind of from the collection thing of just being like, oh, it's fun to have this new like this hobby of like vintage clothes that I can buy. But again, everything I was buying was stuff. It was not like just so I can like put it on display or something. It was all stuff that I wanted to wear. Um, but I don't think
Yeah.
I think it was always like this is something fun that I want to do to dress the way I want.
Yeah, do you think that I mean you had free dress in your high
Mm-hmm.
school. So like did your clothing thing happen before? Like, when did you have uniform? Like what, junior
Junior
high
high, and
or
then I
okay.
started trying to dress cool in like sophomore or junior year or something like that.
Okay, so it was interesting because you already had the freedom to wear what you wore. So I
And
guess
so before then,
okay,
I was
so
like, before I started trying to dress cool, I was wearing like plaid
the plaid
shorts
shorts.
and funny graphic tees. So
Right, right,
yeah.
and that's kind of like the base level of like fashion of like, well, I like this,
Hmm.
and it's practical because I need to wear shorts because I'm always running around with my Game Boy.
Exactly. And I'm like, oh,
Um,
this is a funny T-shirt that has like Batman, Abraham Lincoln on it. So I need to show people that I'm funny.
I've showed everyone the shirt that says picture of my cock, and
Yeah.
it's a
Rooster.
I'm gonna
fucking
show that to
rooster
Taika
on this.
Waititi.
Yeah. MJ, what about you? I mean, because you're kind of relatively new to this whole thing
Yeah.
before us. Like, did you always have the hobby mindset? And you also have a lot of like hobbies or things that you're into. I'm curious about like, how you compare it to the other things that you're into
Mm-hmm.
as well.
I mean, it was kind of kind of like Spencer. I mean, like all the other hobbies I have were kind of um, had the same collection type of aspect to it, where it's like, right, like Yu-Gi-Oh cards, action figures, Gundam, whatever. So it wasn't that hard to look at it at that perspective, where it's like a bunch of different, a collection of clothes that obviously I want to wear. Um,
Mm-hmm.
Also, because I did start later, um, and the podcast was already out, the blog was already out. It was easy to kind of
You tell me you haven't been a part of the podcast since its
oh
beginning. That's kind of lore
peek peek,
breaking. I
peek
don't know if
behind the
actually people
curtain.
knew that.
Um,
Yeah.
but yeah, I mean, it wasn't hard for me being friends with you two to kind of see that perspective. It just kind of, even without saying it, it bled over from you guys.
Hmm.
Yeah. I mean, I feel like I mean, on the opposite end, like I saw how you guys did certain stuff. And you guys not being Spencer, but like our other friends. I call them nerd friends in a very endearing way. But like our friends who are into like cosplaying or collecting anime figures or action figures or even like we would paintball and airsoft. Like you kind of want to like I get the whole collecting mindset, but there was always something a little bit practical, kind of. I guess figurines are harder, but like I remember as a kid, right, where it's like, oh, like don't like I want all the action figures, but it wasn't to just have them on display. Like I want to play with General Grievous
Yeah,
and have them fight Obi-Wan Kenobi. There was like this practical aspect of it
yeah.
where I'm actually
It's
using
I
it.
want to put the Lego sets
And
together to make a
Hmm.
big Lego set, right?
exactly. And so like there's like I think that that's what makes this like a hobby to me is kind of like woodworking. Like it feels more than just a collecting thing. Like like stamps, you buy it, you put it in your folder. And
What if I
I mean,
told you
maybe
there's a
the whole practical
website you
part.
could buy stamps, by the way? Yeah,
Really?
don't you
S-
hate visiting the post office?
s- s-
Yeah.
This sounds like an ad segue.
It is.
Oh, it
Yeah.
is.
Just kidding.
Whoa, stamps.com.
We're not sponsored by them.
Build it, build it
That was
beautiful. That's
listen,
not what that
stamps.com,
means.
if you're listening, that was a free preview of the kind of shit that
That was
we can
really good.
provide.
It was smooth. It was
Yeah, that's
smooth,
right.
Spencer.
Yeah, see?
Smooth like the boxes that they provide and ship
That's right.
with a free, and you get a free scale with it too, a free digital scale.
Here's another one. You know what scares me around Halloween season? Pretend this came out at Halloween. Casper the Ghost. You
Okay.
know what doesn't scare me? A good night's sleep. Casper mattresses.
Okay, I got it. Yep.
What else is there?
Cut it and clip it, syndicate it.
Yeah.
But no, yeah, maybe it would stamp collecting, like maybe like the practicality part is like you get to look at it, I guess like comic. I mean,
Well,
comic
like
books,
maybe
right?
the
Like I mean,
practicality is like if you need to send out 1,000,000 letters, then like you're totally set for life.
are they? Is the thing of stamps like they're always valid,
No,
or is that
some
like
stamps
maybe,
do expire, but you can buy like forever stamps that don't.
Okay.
I don't understand stamp
You gotta
collecting.
go to stamps.com.
Okay. Anyway, but yeah. Anyway, like I always thought like and maybe I was always searching for something tangible, and we'll get into that next year. This idea about physically, tangibly, partaking in this hobby and learning things. But I think when maybe because like I was kind of alone for a lot of this, like my friends, again, I said before, like they would leave school right away, but my parents wouldn't get off work till late, so they would pick me up later. Like even though I had Yu-Gi-Oh cards, I had no one to like play with. And I guess video games is kind of like this, this example of I want every Halo game, but I also want to play it.
Mhm.
There's a practicality. But like maybe like clothing was the first one I saw that like I could be like, oh, I can collect and I can put it on and I can like walk around in it. You know what I
Mm-hmm.
mean? Like there's this, it was all encompassing, and that's what made it such a unique hobby for me. And if you add on the fact that in high school, because I got into vintage maybe like at the tail end of senior year in like that summertime, because Gatsby was like 2013, so maybe there was also like a little bit of like freshman year of college. But I was wearing uniform a lot, so like clothes to me was pretty practical at that point. I had uniform for the Monday through Friday. I had jeans for jean day on
Jean
certain
day.
Fridays. And then we had like church clothes on Saturday. And so like what Sunday was like the only day you could wear whatever you want. And so obviously at that point when I only had like one dimension, obviously it was a Star Wars t-shirt with plaid shorts and flip-flops. Like that's just what it had to be.
Mm-hmm.
So when I got into clothing, it's like, okay, so there's this thing I can collect that I like. I can put it together physically on my body, and I don't have to, like, it doesn't have to be done like after I put it on. Like it's not like, oh, the Lego is done after I assemble it. You can actually play with the Legos, right? Like the Lego part, the whole thing with Legos is it's collectible because you buy each set. You get to put the fun is in putting it together, and you get to play with it.
Mm-hmm.
That's what made it so cool, and that's what makes it such a menswear thing for me, or a menswear a hobby to me. And the best part is that it didn't matter what I wore because apparently my taste was just so good enough, at least living in SoCal, that I could wear it wherever I wanted. Like that's why with vintage, it was never really received badly because I wore it to church first of all because like that was like what again one of the only days I could wear it, and it just looked for most people it just looks like church clothes
Yeah.
because it's like a tie, a sport coat, and pants. So I was like, oh, it's fine. And then like when if I happen to wear it outside, okay, maybe I'm just like a little preppy guy, or whatever. And so it was always kind of like this weird hobby that just you know, it was silly, but also it made me feel good, and I could collect, and I could feel obsessive about it, and it was still practical because it's like, okay, well, obviously I can't wear skinny pants because it's not conducive to what I want. Also, it's comfortable, so like it just
Mhm.
all came together. And again, maybe this kind of weird costuming way of looking at it that's too similar to like again buying Yu-Gi-Oh cards or whatever is what poisoned my mind into thinking it's menswear versus like okay the conventional you know MFA version of oh I gotta get into I got a new job, I gotta look good for this job, what can I wear that can work for that and is still kind of cool or trendy.
Mm.
Like I never had that.
Mhm.
And so when I started working, and maybe this is also good because I got into it earlier, because like when I had my internship or my campus job, I still look like a nice normal guy, because I'm wearing a fucking tie and shirt. I'm wearing a polo shirt and khakis, and it's like, oh, like, I didn't. There wasn't this whole thing of like, oh, I can't wear what I want because like I still liked a lot of stuff, so it was still fine. Maybe there's a small code switch of like, oh, I can't wear like my peak lapel jacket, but it's okay because I like a plain jacket too, or I still like a polo shirt and khakis with like penny loafers. Like it's still
Yeah.
fine. Um, but that's kind of like how it became a hobby, and it kind of works till today. Where again, if I work from home and I don't have to do anything, it's just
You can wear whatever you want. You have the freedom
like
to just wear whatever.
yeah, exactly. I mean, and we have friends who are kind of similar too. I mean, like Marco gets to wear his cool stuff to the office, and he also gets to exude his like motorcycle stuff, like his love of like leather and like I not really workwear, but like like more practical clothing, and he'll get to wear it with that, and he'll also combine it the way he wants to. Um, I get to be yuppie for like if I have to do like a corporate thing or appear on camera, and I can also be, you know, going out slouchy, hepcat 40s vibes when I go out with Spencer. It's like there's so many avenues for this, and I don't know, maybe we're just like blessed to do it that
Mhm.
way. I guess I wonder what it is that makes people resistant to thinking of it like a hobby. I mean, maybe it's because it's reductive. Like people think of hobbies too much as like
For
this
fun.
like they don't. Yeah, maybe like because like they have to wear
I
something
think I think
and this
we've
perception of
we've
rules.
talked. I think we've talked about this where it's like it always reminds me of like the thing in like on my Torah where he talks about how all the fashion magazines in Japan in the 60s and 70s had to be like instruction manuals, like how to fix a motorcycle basically.
Mm.
Um because there just wasn't the same culture of having like just creative hobbies like that. And I think that attitude has spread everywhere now, where I don't know, like it's like hustle culture stuff where it's like everyone's hobbies are just
Yeah.
stuff that it's like my hobby is, you know, fucking NFT trading or like working out or something, which like, you know, some of the like having hobbies that are just supposed to improve yourself is great, but I don't know. I don't like. I feel like people might think that fashion is like, oh, like silly or frivolous or something. It's like, why are you dressing like for fun when you can be dressing to get a girlfriend or become the CEO of your company or something? And you know, kind of sad. Um, but yeah.
Yeah. No, I get that too. I feel like also most people's hobbies are again super insular. I
Mm-hmm.
mean, again, maybe that's because menswear isn't as private as other things, you know. But I mean, there's the whole aspect about community because it's like like wearing cosplay. Like it makes more sense, I guess, if you wear it within the context of a convention or something or a gathering. And I guess menswear does make more sense. It's like if you're in New York and you're going to like a rowing blazers party or something. But maybe there's the whole standing out aspect where like we're okay with taking it out of the context. Maybe most people like hobbies they stay within the context like maybe that's what makes it a hobby, but I don't know, maybe it's because we've met people who do their hobbies out, we're like I think it's like being into film,
Mm-hmm.
like and not film movies but like photographing film, like yeah, like okay, photography as a hobby doesn't mean you have to always just shoot like posed models, right? Like you can also just I can get in I can do film photography of like my friends when we're hanging out, and it doesn't have to be like a produced photo shoot. Like that's I mean maybe people don't want to think of photography that way, but I do it that way. Like I get to like take the photo I like, I get to do the whole thing of editing, and I can take it out wherever I want
Well,
it to be. Like that's what makes it
I
interesting.
think maybe like there is a good kind of comparison between being into like classic menswear in the same way that we are and being into film photography versus like regular digital photography. Because I'm not saying that like one is better than the other, but like film photography, that is like a deeper level of commitment, obviously,
Mhm.
than just getting into regular film
Yeah.
photography. Because then all of a sudden, rather than just like, you know, getting a memory card and shooting like 1,000 photos or something, then all of a sudden you have to take into account like how many shots your roll has. You actually have to buy the film, and then if you're really deep into it, you have to develop the film itself and expose yourself to like fucking dangerous chemicals and stuff like that, where and
Right.
like the payoff is not really that much greater than like I'm not saying like to the photographer it is, but like, you know, come on, like between I feel like I'm losing the point here, but I'm just saying that if we wanted to just be if we just wanted to like buy suits from Macy's or something and then like get them tailored and go on TikTok and, you know, like or whatever, we could do that, but we're not into that. Like we want to take things deeper, we want to take things to like a step further.
Right. Well, I think maybe this is like the whole idea that this thing, this art form, and we'll get into like how creative menswear is for
Mm-hmm.
us. Um, like maybe it's because like there are people who use it for not monetary gain, but like it's
Yeah.
monetized. You know what I mean? Like there's like a traditional status achieving part of it. Like when I say oh I'm in photography, like oh yeah, what do you shoot? I'm like I don't know, my friends. Like I don't really have like I'm not like I don't do product photography. I mean I can.
Mm-hmm.
I just like it's not like my job, or like I don't do like dedicated portrait sessions. It's like I'm not. It's literally for fun. Like I'm, and maybe for most people, like putting all of that effort into something that doesn't really give them anything else other than like a personal enjoyment, um, is a little bit odd. Because I
Mm-hmm.
have done that before. Where like, oh, I spend so much money on film. Like, I mean, for 2 years, I spent so much money on film, and I put it into like my photo album. And they're like, well, why? Like, you're not even doing like model shoots. You're not getting. I'm like, so?
Mm-hmm.
Like, I don't know what the big deal is. Like isn't that like a waste of film or a waste of time? Like I mean not really, like
It's
I got what I like
Yeah,
out of
and
it, you
again, it's
know
just showing like the extra passion. It's just showing that yeah, you want to go the step deeper.
yeah. So maybe we can talk about like how much of this is like a creative hobby for us, because I think maybe that's what the missing aspect is. Like that's what makes it more than just like collecting Legos, right? Like I mean, I like the collecting Legos is cool. We get to make this, but there's also the other aspect of like doing mocks, right? Where like you can take sets, use it for like take it for parts, and then like make your own thing. And you take a photo of it, which could be like a fit pic, and like you post it. And I think maybe I've always done that. So like I thought of menswear in that way. I again, unfortunately, I had a 1997 Lego X-wing, one of the original one, the gray one. That's like probably like maybe like $60 now if you find it sealed or whatever. But early on I cannibalized it because I needed gray like wedge parts and like the everything. So I made some stuff with it, and that to me is like a little bit creative. It's not like the same thing as like it's not a fine art, but it is something that I can do that like makes things interesting for me, that more than just the collecting aspect of it, I don't know, what do you guys think? Like, I mean, I know that you guys think it's creative, but like I'm curious like what your actual thoughts on the creativity of like a menswear hobby.
One of the things that like I think like menswear is maybe that's where all of my other creative interests like kind of like run into, like
Yeah.
like anything like when with like any of my other interests like movies or history or whatever. I think that also that just kind of gets like that energy gets channeled into menswear because I do think it's creative, but I've like I don't know. This might be. I've talked about this on the podcast before. I don't know what it says about my psychology, but like before I was like into like fashion, like like before I was into dressing the way I am now, like uh, like a random guy from like 1946. I like to dress like a random guy from like 1746 because I liked wearing like pirate clothes and stuff like that. Like I would just like dress up like a
Hell yeah,
pirate for
brother.
fun at home. And it was like the thing that I did when I was like reading about like pirates in my books or watching movies like the Muppets Treasure Island or whatever. And it's like now like again I don't know what it says about my psychology, but now I'm basically doing the same thing when I'm like reading
Damn.
about like the past and like reading about these like these figures from the 20th century or like, and I'm watching movies now. Like I was watching this documentary about
Right.
the Newport Film Festival from 1967, and I just kept pausing to like look at people's outfits and stuff like that. And
Yeah.
so it's like, yeah, I don't know. I think it's always just been kind of the same motivation of like the things that I'm interested in. I kind of want to visibly display. I guess like I want to.
Oh yeah,
Yeah.
there's something kind of like slightly narcissistic
Hmm.
about it, where like you kind of just do it, and something not unrelated, but I'm like maybe we're just blessed with like being able to get into this at such an early
Yeah.
age, where it kind of
Mm-hmm.
defines who we are as adults, versus like getting to mentor as an adult where you have like different
Uh huh.
stakeholders, so like it is harder. Whereas like if you were like if you were a kid as like a cosplayer or like you just like that, as you get older, people just know that about you, so it makes it easier for you to be a cosplayer. Even if it is still weird for some people, like it's too late,
Yeah.
right? But like if you were getting into cosplay at 30, I could definitely see a lot of people be like, "Oh, I don't know if I could actually do
Yeah.
this," you
But
know?
yeah,
So, but
well, no, what
yeah.
were you gonna say?
I was gonna say like maybe you, man, if you met us back when you were in high school or earlier, maybe you would have been a cos.
Maybe.
Yeah,
You would have been the white guy hanging out with the
you
Asians
Yeah.
doing
you
the
you would have been the
cosplay.
honorary Asian in the group.
But
Actually, Spencer, I don't mean this in the. And this is kind of an
okay.
insult, but I can't say as a cosplayer, but I do think that if you had less cool friends, you might have been a steampunk
Oh
guy. I
God, maybe
definitely can kind of see
could
it.
have
I
happened.
mean,
Or a
yeah,
rockabilly guy. I'm like,
that too.
unfortunately, I'm like 70% of the way to a rockabilly guy. I just don't
He's not gonna
um
admit it.
hang out
Yeah,
with them. But
if you still had hair, you'd have a
yeah,
pompadour all the
exactly.
time.
No, but I think I
Yeah,
mean it's like it's a cinematic dressing episode where it's like, again, I was just kind of into like I always had fun doing theater in high school, like the stage where because at least in my high school, like you did kind of get like to help pick out like your costume.
like the costuming.
Like you would
Okay,
work
yeah.
like obviously there was like a costume director who was usually just like the director's daughter or something. She would come in, but you would like you would like get to consult, or maybe it was just me because I was like into clothes, but I was like I would always like get to consult what the character would wear, and I always thought that process was really fun. And so again, now it's just kind of like coming up with the idea of like what I want to look like in the morning and creating a costume for that character. And that's, I think, where the creativity, that's where
And yeah,
it's,
it's like a
yeah.
hobby thing, right? It's like, yeah. Yeah, MJ, what about you? Like, where does the creativity, like,
Uh,
do you think of this menswear thing as a creative hobby?
yeah. I mean, it's going back to like our Lego example. It's kind of just like taking the bits and pieces that you like or that you need, and kind of putting
Yeah.
your own perspective or your own spin on it. Um, I think, well, this might be lost on like our listeners. I think you guys will get it because
Do
like,
it, alienate them.
but like, you know how when you're playing a video game and you're kind of like, okay, the mechanics of this game is like in this box, but like maybe I can like play it like this way over here to
Yeah,
like
yeah,
be
yeah,
different,
yeah.
or like this character like in a different way. So it's kind of like the same thing where it's like we have the same tools or the same resources, the same similar pieces, right? But
Right.
like we want to make it go towards like a certain direction, or
Yeah, I mean, that's a good point. Maybe like creative might be. I know that can be kind of triggering for some people. Like, oh, it's not like you're painting. I get it. I know. But maybe like when I say creative, I just mean like it's. There are personal
Yeah.
choices still involved, and I think that's what makes it like the idea of that intentional thing is kind of creative because like you're deciding on doing something that's maybe outside, like I'm just outside the bounds. Because it's like, I mean, we all know the meta from Warzone 1, but we still pick guns because
because
we
it's
like them
cool.
and think they're
Yeah,
cool. Yeah, and we just and like I don't care if my thing the time to kill is higher.
yeah.
I
No,
want to use
remember?
this
Do you
gun,
remember when
man.
we went in the airsoft store and like we went into the e-bike like before we had before like one of our first, I get, well, this is still like the only one that I've been to, but I guess one of the first like matches we did, and we kept asking for all
Yeah,
like the retro like World War
like the
II,
Sten
or
and
like,
like
yeah,
yeah,
anything with like like wood furniture and steel,
Yeah,
and he was like, these all suck,
yeah,
why don't you just get an M4 or something?
yeah. Why don't you
yeah.
just
It's
get
like
an
like
AK,
they're
man?
gonna jam up like a lot, or like they're gonna be too heavy, and that's like, but they're
They look
cool,
so much
man.
cooler than like an M4.
That's what I'm saying, and it's like it'd be like, it's like like it'd be cool if you like were wearing that or had that stuff when you're out in like the fucking field in the desert. Like it's just like, yeah, I get it. Like you can't put like a holographic sight on the Thompson,
Uh-huh.
but I would I if I could I'd run up there with my like with the fucking
Yeah.
Thompson machine gun, dude. That'd be fucking
Or dude,
sick,
that
man.
MP40 with the word furniture, that thing is still
Oh, that was one of the best stories,
Yeah,
man.
invisible.
I mean, it's like again, this is not airsoft talk, but one of my favorite guns like the Mauser C96, right? Like
Mhm.
the Han Solo gun, or the Wild Dog gun, because that's what he
Yeah.
uses, baby. And like the guy was like, dude, any guy like that I've like that has bought this and brought it to a battle, it's literally like exploded because like the wood, like just like it just the repeated movements and and putting all of like the mechanics into this like old frame or whatever, it just
Yeah.
doesn't really work. And I'm like, but it's the coolest gun you
Yeah.
have, man. Like I can't. Um, but yeah, I like that idea, of like kind of taking these things because it's like obviously there are conventional ways to wear things or just types of garments that just are more conducive for like regular, you know, regular attire, whatever that means to
Mhm.
people, and like consciously making a choice to do it in some other way. Like obviously there's gonna be overlap. Like yeah, we still wear gray pants
Yeah.
with a navy
Yeah. No,
jacket, but it's not gonna be
I'm not
like
saying that people
yeah.
are gonna look at us and being like, "Whoa, that guy's crazy for wearing, that shirt with those pants." It's just like it's more like for us, or those
Yeah,
who
Hmm.
know.
yeah, and that's like the biggest thing because it's like me with film score. And we kind of talked about this in the music episode, but like again, my biggest hobby, I guess, outside of like Legos and like playing video games or whatever, was like composing music, and that was like largely for me, like to kind of prove that I like it. And it's the music is like clothing, where like if you listen to my music, you'll know what I listen to as inspiration. So if you look at my style, you'd be like, oh yeah, he probably looks at Drake's or Bryceland's or looks at old mid-century movies or has like maybe there's like some like Y2K corporate guy attire in there, and it's like yeah, like that's kind of the point, like I'm publicly showing what I like, and it's like when MJ listens to one of my pieces and he can tell when a trumpet run is coming, like da, 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 like you just know, and if you go and you'll be like, well, that's the John Williams showing through, right? Or if I layer an electric guitar over the low strings, okay, that's Hans Zimmer for you, and it's like
Hmm.
it's an exercise for me to internalize what I like, but it's also like I just, I play it also.
Mm-hmm.
Like my music, I put it out there, like on SoundCloud. People don't listen to it because like the algorithm does not favor film score. But if I'm driving you, you're listening to my music. Like it just like, and so it's kind of the same thing with clothing. Where like if you're around me, you're gonna see my fit. Like I
Yeah.
don't care what you think. Like I don't like other like whatever. And yeah, I get it. Like maybe I wouldn't play my music openly at the office. Like that makes it different. But bear with me, guys. Like come on. Um, but how about this? How about we finish off with like what steps do we take to make it independent to like keep it like a hobby? Like 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 we said earlier at the top, like we don't take a lot of outside input. Like what does that mean for you exactly, Spencer?
That's kind of hard because I feel like the only like the only outside pressure I ever had was like when I first got into it and I wanted to like impress this is going to sound weird, all the much older people at like vintage events and stuff like that.
Oh, you want the esteem and status
Yeah,
of those guys.
exactly. But after that, I mean, like honestly, even before then, like I still like most of the time when I was dressing up, I wasn't seeing vintage people. I was seeing like people in my high school. Like, I was seeing people in fucking
Right.
AP history class or whatever.
Yeah.
And so I don't know. I would mostly say that like for the like for the most part, I've just never had that external pressure. So it's not like a step of like turning it off. It's just um
And even then, like again, for your younger age, your stakeholders are a lot as much as like, oh, your
mhm.
coworkers. Like,
Mm-hmm.
you don't want like now you're probably know like if you got a job, if you were an intern right now and you wore military jackets and you got a job, people would probably know you as like, oh, you're the guy who likes milk
Yeah.
soup. Like as opposed to like, you were like the guy wearing like mall clothes and all of a sudden you walk in wearing like a fucking jungle jacket and
Uh-huh.
aviators and you're like, whoa, who the hell's this guy? Like you because I mean, luckily because of how long you've been into it, you can take that pressure off.
Mm-hmm.
Exactly. Like I don't know. It's nice like most of the time literally like we've talked about this, but it is nice literally most of the time not thinking about what I'm wearing. Like when I'm
Yeah,
standing
yeah.
around and wearing something like fucking like camo pants or something, which I don't know, like a lot of guys wear like camo joggers, but camo pants is kind of like a bolder
I've
choice.
been thankful I've been seeing that less lately. That's probably a good
Yeah,
thing.
but it's like one of those things where it's like stuff that I used to think
Yeah.
was like, oh, is this too bold or is this too like out there? Now I can wear it and just like not like think about what I'm wearing. Like I just don't. Yeah.
That's also like an example of like personal
Mm-hmm.
taste too. I think it's just honing it in better. I mean, because it's like I think not to go off topic, but there's a lot of things we think are cool, but maybe we just didn't know how to do it back
Yeah.
then. Like I always liked wearing purple jackets, but maybe like the way I mean, and I think I wore it with gray trousers, so I kind of knew what I was doing back then. But like, I think after I got rid of it because I literally outgrew it, I was able to come back to it with like purple cord. I'm like, fuck yeah, dude, purple cord's
Mm-hmm.
awesome, and it just kind of made sense, and might be more wearable than like a single breasted peak lapel jacket. Although, if I could, I would definitely have like a 30s cut purple peak single breasted peak lapel suit or even a DB. I'd have it all, baby. Like it's hard. I like everything.
Yeah.
Um, but what about you, MJ? What like how do you wrestle with keeping it like a personal thing? Like it's influenced by majority yourself.
Right. I mean, like, I don't know if there's like a necessarily good or one answer for it, but I think it boils down to just having fun with it. Because like, as long as you do it for yourself, like I feel like that's the the you know I don't want to say end all be all, but like you know if you're doing it for yourself, like that's the important part. Because
Right.
I know we talked about like being influenced by our circles and stuff like that, but they're they're not, and I would say the three of us are all on the same page. They're not dictating the way that we choose our clothes or buy stuff, right?
Mm-hmm.
Um,
Yeah, it doesn't really operate on their esteem. Like again, like I've said, um, I I don't care if a fit pick doesn't break 300 or whatever. I'm gonna post it
yeah,
anyway. you
and
know,
like not
like
to,
yeah.
I mean, it's not necessarily a call out, and I'm sure nobody like this listens to us, but like you know hype beasts and sneakerheads kind of like they all kind of just like run to the same trends and drops and stuff like that. Like I mean that's the whole like point or the whole beginnings of the
I
term,
mean, yeah,
right?
flexing is like a different aspect of hobby, which I guess sometimes we kind of do, but not in the same way. Like there's usually like scarcity involved with most flexing,
Yeah.
which I guess makes sense from like a wealth and like accessibility standpoint. But like for us, flexing is more so like, oh, we just like it's something that anyone can buy. Like you just have to get there. You know what I mean? Like,
Yeah.
oh, like I'm not like my ring jacket. You can still, I mean, drop 93 is still there. You can buy literally. You can still buy a lot of what I own.
Yeah.
Honestly, like
Mhm.
it's not that hard. So it's not really, to me. It's not like a true flex. Versus like if someone was able to wear like something Gucci, I'm like, well, that's kind of a flex because like that's expensive and scarce, and I, whatever, accessibility is not there.
I
Yeah.
guess
So I
like
get
maybe
it.
there's some flexing in like the if you know you know kind of stuff with our
But
clothes.
that's not like, but we. It's not even like gatekeep because it's like if you ask us, we will tell
Yeah.
you where we
Yeah.
got
But
this.
cuz
Like,
also in kind of like the what we were saying like the scale or like the tiers of like how much that matters, it's not up there. So
yeah, I mean, again, it doesn't matter. Like, a guy could wear my exact outfit, and they probably won't because no one does this. Like we've said that before. But like, I'd probably be like, "Oh, cool." I wouldn't be mad.
Yeah.
yeah.
I'd be kind of like, I'd be more concerned with how they got there or
Yeah.
how
Well,
they picked
anytime,
it. You know what
like,
I mean?
if I ever see someone in like some old milsurp or whatever, I'm like, oh, hey, that's cool. Like, I'm excited to talk to someone who like knows
Yeah.
about it. And one time that
Because
kind of backfired because I saw someone, like, I saw a girl
Oh,
on campus wearing like a jungle jacket, and I was also wearing a jungle jacket, and I'm like, oh, that's cool. And I was like, and she was like, she's just like, oh, I just got this at Buffalo. Like I don't know, like
oh,
and it's like, hey,
damn!
there's
I hate to,
it's
I hate to see
it's
it.
not that there's anything wrong with getting a jungle jacket at Buffalo versus like a flea market, um, but she did not want to talk about the jacket at all. I wasn't even trying to start a conversation. I'm trying to defend myself now because I'm realizing I'm describing it bad. I was literally just like, "Hey, same jacket," and she was like, "I got this at Buffalo," and that was it.
yeah. I was gonna say I think
I
I
mean,
avoided that scenario.
Yeah,
Like I saw somebody on my campus that was wearing they were wearing like a green jumpsuit, like like our
yeah,
army
yeah,
green jumpsuit, and I was wearing the jungle jacket. I was just like I'm just gonna look. I'm just gonna
yeah.
look at them from
well,
afar.
I've got I've got two anecdotes for you guys on this. Um there's one time I was at a menswear event. I was talking to this guy. It's like, yeah, it's fun to be like a young guy into menswear. I'm like, yeah, me too. And he's like, yeah. And we said, like, yeah, we're kind of a common. He goes, yeah, but I'm not like those like fucking losers who just wear like sneakers all the time. Like, I think that's so stupid. And I'm like, oh, he's one of those guys. Like, oh, he thinks he's better just because he's wearing a suit.
Yeah,
Like, damn it. Like, I don't want to be associated with
yeah,
this.
yeah.
The other one is sometimes when you can clearly be more into it than someone else, and they still talk to the person who's not into it. And I say this because there's no offense to our friend, but he isn't as like super into our clothes as we are. But he was wearing something that looked like a Palm Beach jacket, and this guy who's wearing head to toe vintage, and I'm there in head to toe
Yep.
vintage too. But he talks to our friend who is wearing like the fast fashion version of whatever this is. It's not even fast fashion version. It wasn't even saying. It was just like something that it's like a chore coat in like a fucking like knit fabric that looks kind of like Palm Beach.
Hmm.
And I'm there wearing like a sports shirt with like jeans and a fedora. And the guy wearing a fedora and a spear point collar talks to the guy wearing Uniqlo, and he's like, "Oh, is this blank?" And our friend didn't really know how to describe it. And then I kind of jump in to talk about it, and the guy goes, "No, I'm talking to this
Yeah.
guy," and I'm like, "Okay, fuck off!" Like, so it's crazy. I mean, and, it's funny that even if I'm like super into it, they'll talk to someone else. Like, it's
Well,
crazy.
because I think
Anyway,
that's
that's
like
my
it's like one of the vintage guys where it's like, oh, if you're not wearing a suit, they don't care. They're like only into the vintage suits. And we've talked about
Mhm.
this, how
Yeah,
there's some vintage collectors who will look really good in like 40s suits, but as soon as they try to wear anything else, they look like trash. Like even if it's they're trying to
yeah,
approximate like vintage casual wear, they'll somehow look bad doing it.
right. I think it's kind of fun. I mean, on that note, like I think being around those vintage people was formative. Like it was like that they would wear it all the time, and especially if you read the book I Am Dandy, which
Hmm.
I'm sure we might cover at some point. But like these guys like live it. Like it's a hobby and it's practical because they actually wear it out.
Hmm.
And maybe again, these guys have developed their taste over years, and so they're comfortable like being out there. Like and again, being the book, like being a dandy is like kind of being like unbothered by other people's opinions. So it's like it kind of just goes hand in hand. Like again, there's not a lot of like corporate regular guys in that book
No.
anyway. Um, but it does make sense where like if we were around that and like obviously some guys like yeah they would be like I don't know like they'd be set designers and like that kind of like works with like wearing kind of fun vintage clothing or something. Um, but then of course there's some people who like are really into the hobby but they can only wear it on weekends, which I think is kind of
Yeah.
sad.
Mhm.
But like that does happen. But
I
to,
mean,
to
like
go
we
back to
also
like the
had
idea of
friends like I feel like we had friends who they worked completely like regular accounting jobs, but they would still go in wearing like 1910s era suits. Um, like did
yeah, maybe they've like resigned their fate a little
yeah.
bit, Like I mean, no offense to this person I'm thinking, but he lives in like the
Hmm.
valley. Like I'm talking like like the San Fernando Valley and he worked at like some local like 5 person like not even H&R Block, just like some random thing. And it's like no offense to that guy, but he probably also knew like that's what his life was gonna be, and if he found a place that accepted that, he's fine with it.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like, I think that menswear, the way that we are into it, is kind of is a little bit poised by the fact that some the thing stuff that we like maybe is a bit more expensive, and so the guys that are into it maybe have more stakeholders, like they work in traditional jobs or like finance or whatever, and so they're stuck into it. And so they have to be a little bit more careful with how they present themselves for fear of losing something. And hey, that's fine. But I guess that's what takes it out of being just a hobby,
Hmm.
which is sad. Like not sad for like not the person is sad, but like I think that that's unfortunate. And so to go back to me, as I always do, um, but I when I think about like separating myself from other people, I feel like me leaving working in menswear as like a full-time job was so important for me because I actually did not like the fact that what I wore could be excused by my job.
Hmm.
Like oh like what if I go, oh, I work in menswear, oh, okay, I get it, like you can do that. I'm like, well, fuck off, I'd wear this even if I didn't
Hmm.
work in menswear, you know what I mean? Like I wanted to be able to say that, and I didn't say I quit my job. In fact, it was quite the opposite because of COVID. But I the separation of like my career or or let's say stakeholders and my attire, freeing myself from that was like the best feeling because it just proves that this whole thing is purely for
Yeah.
myself, you know? And it's the same thing also kind of similarly where like when I talked to Josh Gooch and he was like, yeah, I wear like my flat caps and my leather jackets, my big high waisted pants when I go on dates because like why not? And we're like, oh yeah, okay. So like why can't I wear a cotton suit with a beret on a first date with a
Yeah.
girl because it's like might as well just lean into it. So like I want to I don't want to say it's more of a I guess maybe for the later distinction would be like, oh, is it a hobby or a lifestyle?
Hmm.
I don't know what quote a menswear lifestyle is because I don't the stereotypical
Because
Negroni stuff
you're not
doesn't always
alive.
apply to me. Yeah, I'm dead. I'm warm bodies.
Yeah.
Remember that
Of
movie?
course I do.
But like yeah, I want it to just be considered just a hobby. Like I do it because it's fun. It's literally just like my film photography. It's just like me writing music. It's just like I guess it's a little bit different than the more consumption based stuff of like, oh, my hobby is watching movies or buying Star Wars figures. Like I think like if I wanted to like I could make it more practical. Like oh I watch movies, but I also like to make movies. Or like oh I buy action figures, but I also like to photograph dioramas with those ones. Like I feel like there's always a way I could do it, and of course if I did everything, I'd be so exhausted. But clothing I think is the closest thing I have to that, where the participation is obsessive, but it's also malleable and tangible and creative and intentional and practical for what my life does,
Mhm.
and I, I can't imagine being so self-conscious if I just work from home and then occasionally go to a coffee shop. Like, might as well put my hobby with me,
Yeah.
it's, it's kind of like, I like it when guys talk about their hobbies and actually do something with it. I guess not that they do something with it. I'm like when it's tangible. Like there are guys who collect vintage synths,
Mhm.
but then there's a difference between like a museum and then guys who like, oh, I bought this vintage synth and I'm gonna fucking plug it in and see what the fuck sounds come out of it and make a song. I think that's super cool.
Yeah.
You know, it's it's like how some musicians again, like I mean, I guess it's the same analogy, but like like oh, like I have different types of like saxophones, because they all produce different sounds, and it's not just like, oh, I play, like, I want to record a song with this because I want to capture the essence of this particular item and use it into something that I can create, so like, yeah, I can buy a belt back just to look at it, but also like I want to interact my belt back with my custom trousers, or this brocade tie is beautiful, but I also want to wear it with a 1960s OCBD. Like, that to me is the interesting part also, that makes the whole thing a hobby. And I want more people to think of things like that, and if that just means that you have like one day a week where you get to fully be yourself, I think you should take advantage of it. And not to say that our listeners don't do that, but I obviously think that it's the ideal world is where your stakeholders are unaffected by your choices, and it is sad or unfortunate that menswear is so public. Like, you can't be a secret furry, or you can't really be a secret menswear guy. But hey,
you can't be a secret menswear furry.
But hey, props to I went to Barcadia, which I guess it was on Halloween, technically, or around the Halloween weekend, and yeah, you could be the sexy, Little Riding Hood, or a sexy. I mean, there's a lot of anime characters, guys that are like shirtless, that are just like ferment a thirst trap. But I saw some furries at the local bar, and I'm like, hell yeah, dude! Like, I'm glad that you get this opportunity to kind of live your truth. And as we said, Ben, I mean, hey, bespoke suits, or furry suits, are technically bespoke. They're made for your body.
Yeah, that's
baby.
right.
There's an
That's
individual
right.
pattern involved. Famously, hey, shut up, boopum snoodum.
Which, if you had to get a fursuit done by any of the Savile Row tailors, who would you go to? Henry Poole?
I mean, Anderson Shepherd for
Anderson
those.
and Shepherd.
I mean, come on, that's the basic answer. But hey, I mean, you gotta go with the classic, right?
Do you think the Kingsmen?
Yeah. What would the Huntsman?
Yeah,
be?
the
Huntsman.
No, I'm talking about Kingsmen, because I want to see weapons in there. I want to see a fursuit that like has a poison-tipped claw or something.
What's so funny is, I mean, I'm like outed as a furry at this point, but it's like,
Jesus.
like the crossover between like furries and then like militia people it's kind of there. Like, there's a lot of like furries who are like have like military stuff, which I think is kind of
If you go on the
but, like,
Airsoft subreddit,
surprised.
you do see a lot of intersections between the two.
That's what I'm saying.
Yeah.
It's weird. It's supposed to be about sex, man. Come on. Don't poison my thing with just the
Are you
gun.
okay? I wasn't sure if you were saying that the airsoft is poisoning furrydom, or if the furries are poisoning airsoft. But you're saying that the airsoft is bad for furries.
Exactly.
Okay.
Exactly. Yeah, that's my stance on
Yeah.
it. You can put guns with everything else.
Yeah.
But anyway, I hope that everyone else kind of sees our mindset on this, and I think it's important to talk about this because, yeah, I think we do see this a little differently than at least most conventional people who get into menswear, and I think that this hobby aspect is probably one of the reasons why a lot of our friends are able to kind of glean something from us, like there is a similar obsessive. I mean, that's why MJ got into it. Like, I'm sure he was like, oh yeah, like this is like, the same way we collect Yu-Gi-Oh cards to also play with them and play against each other. It's the same thing with men's. We're like, oh, we're not just buying it just to buy it. Like, we want to wear it out and like have fun and combine it with different things. Am I right, MJ?
Yes.
There you go. Thank you. But like guys like Adam. Oh man, take a shot. Oh, it's the first shot you've had to do in a while. Man, my God. But like, yeah, like you. Like the guys that we've interacted with in person have kind of seen it in a similar way, and it's also not surprising that people who maybe don't get into it the way we do just don't see it that way. Like, oh, I dress primarily for work, or I dress primarily for dates or for whatever, and that's fine too. Like, I mean, everyone has their own reasons, their own status reasons for dressing. But if you have hobbies that are similar to this and you look at clothing in this way, it's also not surprising that the choices you make are probably similar to ours. Like, it just kind of makes sense that this menswear hobbyist kind of goes this way, and maybe while someone who is more practical focused goes in another direction. Like there's it's not surprising that we're not minimalists. Like, it's kind of funny that like when you like this stuff, it's kind of like when you collect Yu-Gi-Oh cards, you probably have a lot of Yu-Gi-Oh cards. It kind of just makes sense.
Yeah.
Like, and then like you don't, like, yeah, you might get rid of some, but like, oh, what if you think of, oh, instead of getting rid of this card, I can just make a deck for this particular card, and then that goes up. It's the same thing of like Warzone loadouts. Like, yeah, we have our favorite gun, but like, okay, if we want to to do this gun, we can make a load up for that gun. We have these attachments. It just goes on for forever.
Mm-hmm.
So it's like related to the in and out list. This is why our in list is a lot bigger because we just when we like something, we find a way to make it work, and it just becomes.
As I've said, I've always just thought it's weird, like the way my mindset is. I mean, again, like this is, I think, probably coming from being someone who is so interested in like specifically vintage clothing, but I'm like, for the most part, style choices don't go like bad. Like they don't spoil or anything. It's like, you know, for the most part, things can maybe be like played out. Like, I don't know, there are songs that I like that I listen to too many times and don't listen to as much anymore, but I still think it's like a good song, for example. And in the same way, I think like, sure, you can get tired of like Western stuff if you see like everybody wearing it, or if you go through like a big Western phase or something. But I don't think the reaction needs to be, it's like, oh, well, now like Western wear like isn't cool or something. I feel like it's still cool. Maybe you just, either you personally need a break from it, or you need to try to find some way to incorporate it another way. But I mean, we talked about this in the archiving episode, and especially now that I'm going
it always comes back,
I'm
baby.
going through, and all this stuff that I bought in like high school and then early college, which I stopped wearing for a couple of years, it's like finding its way back into my wardrobe. I'm like finding new ways to wear it.
I think, again, this is, you know, we got to wrap up because this is a future topic about lists and in and out lists. But I do think for you specifically, Spencer, it's not that those clothes became played out; it's that you found other clothes.
Yeah.
And like to give credit to my thing, you just haven't gotten back to the archive yet. Like you're wearing your new stuff, and you know you'll get there. You know, if you had unlimited time and like, you know, like with watches, it's like, yeah, I get that one watch like might not go with the outfit, but like if I could, I'd wear all my watches. You know, like, if I could, I'd wear everything all the time, but I can't.
Yeah.
And I like to wear my one thing, like one outfit a day kind of a thing. So it's like I'll get there when I get there, and sometimes the list just gets longer of the backlog. And so I'll get there, but like it's because I think a lot of things are cool, and that's kind of the whole thing about the hobby. Like I didn't throw away my Exodia cards when I got Toon cards. I just started playing with my Toon cards, but I still like Exodia. Like or like, you know, like I mean, it's just phases where like it's not that I hate quick scoping. It's like, okay, maybe I'm gonna try using this submachine gun class, and then I'll break out the quick scoping class when I feel like it. But like, you know, I don't know, like it's not that hard, and that's what makes the whole thing a fucking hobby, where like it's all just additive, you know, you just keep adding to it. I don't maybe it's because we don't really outgrow things, because maybe when we got into it, the purchasing power was smaller. So like if we are able to achieve it, we're not getting rid of it because it took too much of us to get it, you know?
Because the other thing, especially with vintage, is like the prices have gone up like 200% probably since when we were buying them like 5 or 6 years ago.
Yeah.
So I keep looking back, and I have all these like, I remember when you could used to get like plain rayon sport shirts for like $20, like $20 each. Remember that? And now my biggest regret is like not buying all of those when they were so cheap before they all became like $200.
Yeah, I think it's funny. It's funny that like our mentality now is like, oh, we can't. It's not that we want to capitalize it. It's that we should have capitalized on it before.
Yeah, like
it's because we still like it. We still like it. It doesn't matter if it's popular. We want more of it, baby. Come on, that's the whole thing. Anyway, I hope that this conversation was enlightening for you guys, and I think one part we didn't get to touch on was, you know, the evangelism part of hobbies, where if you just like it a lot, you might just be around people who just get that from you. Like, I mean, like I got more into like my anime because of being around MJ and Scott and everything. And it's not because like I thought it was cooler, like there was a way to gain status or there, but it's like, oh, I can see the enjoyment it brings them and like what they get from it, you know. And I think that could be the same thing from the people who are around us. And like we're just naturally charismatic, and just people just like our clothing, you know. Of course, we know people don't like it. I'm saying like if you ask us, there's a chance you do like it. But I think any hobby can be like that, you know. Like there's kind of like and sometimes the community aspect is retroactive, right? Like I liked Yu-Gi-Oh on its own, and I didn't know that you could go to card shops and play against people until way later, because it was purely an insular thing, you know. And maybe this is my whole thing of like, we talked about this with Henrik. You'll have to listen to like the whole like Christian background of like, you know, being relegated and like siloed off. But like I think getting into this as a young age where you're not exposed to the world kind of reinforces the idea that it is a personal hobby. And that there's that common like idea that like, oh, you as a young person you develop your musical taste and it just doesn't change. I think that's the same thing with kind of clothes or just with hobbies. um Not to say that you can't get more hobbies later, but it's that usually the things you like will stick with you. And that's kind of where we lucked out, where again, I'd rather be teased for Yu-Gi-Oh as a kid than being like a 40-year-old lawyer who is too scared to go to a card shop because he thinks he's above it. Like I think we're pretty lucky to have got into it younger.
Mm-hmm.
And hey, if there's a 40-year-old guy who likes Yu-Gi-Oh, I mean, like, hey, you should do it. Maybe like hang out with us, and you'll feel more empowered. Just like with menswear, right? Like we know we did have the faux menswear trauma early on, and now we've gotten over it where it doesn't fucking matter. And if you want to come to an event that we're at, we'll gas you up, man. Like we'll try and reinforce your choices so you don't feel fucking weird. Because you should not you shouldn't feel it. You should feel
weird.
good. You should feel good about this whole menswear hobby because it is. And maybe if you don't think of it this way, maybe you should, because that way you'll feel more empowered and more interested in making these choices and kind of just going all in a sense of just of self-expression.
Hashtag all in.
Yeah.
Go all in,
Hashtag
baby.
all in. And speaking of guys all in, there's a couple of people who have gone all in and give us $10 at the end of each month to keep this podcast lights on. Even though I'm recording in the daytime, so I don't need lights actually right now. This is one of the few podcast episodes where we don't reference the time of day or
well,
what
you
immediate
just did now,
recording thing is.
We should start our podcast like people used to write letters by like including the weather.
Yeah,
they should do that.
Welcome
to
Style
But who are we
Direction.
thanking, MJ? Who is our?
It's let me check. I can. My computer tells me the weather.
It's 69 degrees.
Oh,
baby.
hell yeah,
Nice.
dude. Okay.
Nice. Yeah. We are thanking our Sadcast fanatics: Shane Curry, Philip Gregard, Jarek Collian, Henrik Wilberg, and John Clifford.
We appreciate you guys a lot. Yeah, we love you so much. And we also thank our regular patrons too. If you want to be one of those people, $5 a month at styleanddirection.com. Nope, that doesn't exist. Don't go there. Patreon.com/styleanddirection. $5 a month gets you access to our Discord and our backlog of bonus episodes. So listen to Tar, listen to all of that. That comes out actually. Well, it's already out, so you'll have to listen to it on the Patreon thing and add it to your RSS feed. We also want to make sure that you guys know that we're taking a break for December because it's our every fourth month we take a break. So we'll be back in January of 2023 with some more episodes. We're probably going to get into foundational garments versus basics, in and out lists, the tangibility of learning about menswear. Lots of great topics. That stuff is still coming out. So at least for the foreseeable future, we're still here, baby. Yeah. Come on. It's a hobby.
We're not dead.
I mean, hey. Yeah, John's not dead.
John's not dead.
Remember that? Yeah. But hey, I mean, if you think about it, like we've always wanted the idea of like making something, and this is kind of our I like the idea of like editing. Like editing is kind of a hobby, like filmmaking and producing things, and the podcast is an example of putting that to practice. So everything's a hobby. Everything we do is a hobby. The blog is a hobby, man. Everything,
everything's a hobby.
It comes from we think it's cool, so we do it. That should be.
We'd like to announce our acquisition of Hobby Lobby. We're going to be ramping up the stealing of ancient artifacts. We're going to be ramping that up. We're going to be selling even more to ISIS now.
Wait, what? I don't remember this.
Hobby Lobby. I might be oversimplifying it a little bit. Just Google Hobby Lobby.
Oh, look, can we say that's a legend? That's not a real thing.
I'm too lazy to look it up, so sure, I'll add an alleged on there. But they allegedly stole a bunch of ancient Iraqi artifacts and sold them to a group that is a front for ISIS in order to put them in the Creationism Museum and also bring about the end times, like the revelation.
Oh, okay.
prophecies.
Now it's starting to make sense. I think I
and I'm saying that we all want the end times to happen. Am I right? Like that's what this podcast is about deep down.
Yeah, because I'm going to heaven.
Exactly, me too. Yeah. And so this podcast is truly, that's what it's about. It's about bringing about the end times as described in the Book of Revelation.
I think it's so funny that this time the Christian reference came from Spencer and not me or MJ.
Well, I first brought it up by talking about Hobby Lobby, which, weird news stories and crimes, that is my thing. So...
And you want to know what the biggest weird news and crime story is? It's called the fucking Bible,
That's
baby.
right.
Like, look
It's
at
called the
that. It's
Discord.
full of that
We talk about crimes. We talk about weird news stories. Get in the Discord, patreon.com. We talked about it already.
That's right. We'll see you guys either in the bonus episode for December. Who knows what that's about? But we'll also see you guys next year. Thanks for listening for the 5th year.
Wow.
Next year, starting
Half a
6 years,
decade.
baby.
Wow.
Half a decade.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye. Hello, baby. Yeah, there you go. That's it's like a capstone thing for that one.